the Model 1873 Uberti reproduction, right now on Pirate Firearms and Reloading. Hey folks, so welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like the video. So this here is my favorite traditional lever action rifle, is probably the way to put it. So this is a Model 1873 and is a replica of the Winchester rifle. So as you're probably aware, all the Winchester rifles from this time period were named after the year they were put into production, essentially. 1873 is when this came out. There is a lot of debate. I'm pretty happy in saying it though, this is the gun that won the West. And this is designed to be a companion rifle to go alongside your, 6-shot revolver. So this particular one is chambered in 357 Magnum and also really like shooting 38 Special. A lot more fun, lower recoil, easier for a newer shooter. Better if you're shooting cowboy action and that, quicker follow-up shots, a little bit less recoil, a little bit less powder. Economically all the way around, 38 Special's a little bit nicer to shoot. If you're actually trying to tip a four-legged critter over, the 357 Magnum's, going to be better, of course. Originally, you would have had a 6-shooter in, say, 44-40, and then the rifle would be in 44-40. So the idea is that if you were a good guy or an outlaw in those days, you could have the same ammunition for both your rifle and your pistol. So in close quarters, obviously a pistol, a bit more distance, grab the rifle. 38 and 357 Magnum are really, really easy to reload, and I have a little breech loader Martini in 357 as well. So keep it simple, and if I'm shooting black powder loads or nitro loads, they swap between the two rifles without issue. I tailored those loads specifically so they work pretty well in both firearms. So it's not original how it came out of the box, and I'm going to go over a few things and probably hit on a couple of things I don't like and everything else I like, basically. There's only a few little gripes I've got. So I do shoot this. This is not a safe queen. It does get out and about. It gets shot every month, every second month pretty much. So I have changed out to a tunnel front sight with the inserts. This one actually has the level bubble in it as well. I wasn't over the moon, but this was the only one available at the time with the little spirit level in it, so I've taken it anyway. To be honest, if you're shooting fast, you don't really even notice that the bubble's there. If you're trying to take longer range accurate shots, that bubble actually comes in quite handy, so I'm pretty happy with that. That is a Lee shaver, so it's not a Parker Hale, it is that slightly smaller diameter. On the rear tang here, I have a tang fitted sight. This is a marble sight. You can obviously unscrew the aperture if you need a different size, or unscrew it completely if you're speed shooting. And it's got a ball detent, so it is click adjustable. What I've found is on this particular rifle with the 20-inch barrel, one click seems to be about half an MOA, which is kind of nice, it lines up. You will have to drill and tap the top of the tang. The bottom of the tang already has a screw through it from the factory, and when you get these sights from Marbles, they give you the 2 screws as well. So that's really easy. Then you either take it to a gunsmith, or in my case, I did it myself. I have all the equipment, taps, dies, drills, jigs to hold everything in. So that's a really, really straightforward upgrade, and it is still technically period correct. Mounted sights were around in 1873, so it's nothing new. The spirit level in the front, probably not so accurate, but everything else certainly is. So what makes this rifle unique over other lever guns? The 1873 is a little bit unique in the fact that it has a dust cover on the top. So if you're used to, say, like your 1892s, right? So like the Rossi R92 or the Winchesters or thousands of other companies that have made them, the bolt is ultimately the dust cover. Whereas this has a rather small bolt in it, and they made a sliding dust cover on it. Now the cool thing about that, and this is the original design of course, when you cycle the action, it does pull the dust cover back. So you aren't going to have a problem ejecting that empty case because you accidentally have the dust cover sitting forward. And of course you can imagine in the wild, wild west with all the dust and sand around the place, dust cover's kind of important. So that was a nice touch. This particular rifle, the 1873s, have removable side plates to get to the action. Now this, in the long run, does actually weaken the action because you have a larger area of material missing and you have an identical dust cover minus the loading port on the opposite side. However, if you choose to shoot black powder loads through this firearm, it makes cleaning a whole lot easier, and that's part of the reason I went for the 1873 as well. I love the look of the 66, and even I've got a 92 and 44 Magnum. Really cool rifles, a pain to pull apart if you're going to pull them apart every time to clean black powder out of them. This is a whole lot easier. I can clean the barrel, pop the side plates off, clean out the action and any fouling that got in that far, and put it all back together. Protective barrier, I choose WD-40, back together. Blued barrel, blued magazine tube, blued fore-end cap, blued loading gate and dust cover. I'll talk about those a little bit more in a second. And everything else is color case hardened, which I absolutely love. Now, this is the competition variant of the rifle, and you'll see I have a leather cuff on the end. However, it does have a very, very thin rubber pad on the end to help with the grip in the shoulder pocket. There's a couple other variants of this rifle. There's like a carbine and a full-size rifle, and they have the color case hardened butt pad that's, you know, the crescent shape, traditional, more traditional if you like. I've put the leather cuff on the back just to add a bit of length of pull to it. Obviously I don't need help with recoil on a 357 Magnum. And this rifle is relatively heavy with the big octagonal barrel as well, meaning that you don't really get the recoil. I think the only problem would be is if a younger shooter was trying to shoot this, it does get a little heavy after a while. Put it on a rest like this or a sandbag and you're away again. So, this being the competition variant, it is already short stroked. So the stroke is less than 90 degrees. I believe there is aftermarket kits to make that even shorter again. Simply what that does is that speeds up the operation when you are shooting. So it's just a very, very slick action. That's what I'd expect out of a Uberti firearm anyway. Other things to know, down here in the bottom, you'll see that the lever travels a bit more and pushes on this detent here. That is a safety to make sure you do not fire when you're not in battery. And also there is a little toggle here on the back to catch the lever. Once again, in the Wild West, riding around on a horse, you don't want your lever to open itself up and you lose a live round or have your action open filling up full of sand and nasty dust and things. So that was a little feature there. A lot of competition shooters will delete that. I think Shotgun Boogie Gunworks make a delete for that little toggle. I believe there's another couple of brands out there too that do the exact same thing. So beautiful, beautiful stock set. I am a massive fan of color case hardening, and they have done a fantastic job on this. I pick up this rifle every time and I have a smile on my face. Now, magazine capacity on the 357 Magnum is 10 rounds. Obviously with 38 Special, you're not gonna have a problem with that either. Now, so if you are interested in the Tang sight while I'm here, I got it from Buffalo Arm, and there's your model number there if you are interested. This is specific to the Uberti 1873 model. So the two upgrades I have done, from default and the original design, you actually have a leaf spring for your trigger. That is inherently quite strong, and you'll see a couple of washers there that have a filed flat spot. Initially, when I went in there and polished the sear and hammer, I did add 2 washers under the trigger spring to reduce some tension. It worked reasonably well, and I had a nice crisp 4-pound trigger pull, which wasn't the end of the world, but I wanted to make it a little bit lighter, just give me the edge in a competition. So I ended up putting the Shotgun Boogie Gunworks trigger spring in there, which is just a spring steel bar, and it fits in there. In factory, they do recommend that you put a little notch in the back side of the trigger to stop the little bar from shifting left and right. Obviously that leaf spring is relatively wide. Did all that with a Dremel, nice and quick, put it all back together, and I'm sitting right now at about 1.8 pound, which is phenomenal for a rifle like this. The other thing, and probably my biggest gripe about the rifle, and it's not Uberti's fault, it is the original Winchester design, is your original loading gate, loading spoon, whatever you'd like to call it. And it's nicely scalloped out, right? But if you look on the end, that scallop ends. It's not opened here at the end. I have replaced it with the Shotgun Boogie Gunworks 66 style loading gate. So on the 73, the scallop ended here. Don't ask me why, maybe it was easy to manufacture. Not entirely sure why you'd do that, but they did. And so this is the 66 style. That scalloping continues and you have a crescent shape appearing on the stop on here. So essentially the base of your cartridge pushes on here when it's sitting in the magazine tube. So two minor little upgrades, relatively cheap parts. If you're comfortable disassembling this type of firearm, they're not scary to do either. The only thing that is like a permanent modification is when you Dremel that little notch in the backside of the trigger where the spring rests. If you did replace it back with the original leaf spring, that would still work absolutely fine. You haven't interfered with that operation. But if you're looking for warranty, that would obviously void it. So all around, these are a really, really nice rifle. Well designed even in the first place. Like Uberti hasn't really made improvements to this rifle, if you like. This is just the design as it came. A phenomenal rifle. They do come, with a blade and a buckhorn rear sight. The unique thing about this, and we've all seen those cowboy movies where they spin the rifle around, or Terminator where they do it with the 1887 shotgun. Most rifles like the 92s, you cannot do that because your round as it's chambering would fling out from the force. This rifle actually has an elevator rather than what you are used to with a traditional lifter. A traditional lifter would sit here in the bottom, and when the lever is in the forward position, that lifter would come up like a ramp and the bolt would catch the round and push it into the chamber. I'll get as best a photo I can here. Obviously it's a top ejecting firearm. If you are not careful, occasionally you'll end up having one bounce down your shirt or off the brim of your hat, but it is what it is. At least it's not a left or right injector. You can have a left-handed shooter use this without too much trouble. So if you pay particular attention, you would be pulling around out of the chamber, or an empty case I should say. When you come to the back and push, this brass elevator comes up and the round is actually captured inside that elevator. And the only place it can go at this point is into the chamber. If you have the muzzle pointing down, because this is so slick inside, 9 times out of 10, it will actually go into the chamber all by itself, well, with gravity. And then the bolt comes in, and when you close the bolt and it goes in battery, the elevator drops back down and takes the next round out of the magazine. So from underneath, you can also see the brass elevator, and it goes back and forward with the action. So really, really cool design. Essentially, this is the lever action version of control round feed, which a lot of us do like when it comes to our bolt action rifles. So the design is nothing new, essentially. So that's been a quick overview of my favorite traditional lever action rifle, the model 1873. Cool design, an absolute blast to shoot. I've got a few club records with this rifle. It is so easy to shoot, to keep on target. And just ultimately, like I said, every time I pick it up, I've got a smile on my face. Every time I hand it to somebody else to shoot, they end up with a smile on their face. It's just one of those rifles that's such a classic and so simple, but also so much fun. So if you have any questions about this rifle, by all means hit me up in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe and share with a buddy. And until next time, happy shooting.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And if you found this video helpful, please share it with your friends. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Catch you next time.